Yeah. Just those
Okay.
acts on prejudice.
Yeah,
That's where you ended that.
Yeah, the acts on.
Yeah, we're gonna come back. We're gonna hit it.
Yeah,
and I was hoping I did an okay job in setting
You
up
did.
how
That
you can
you-
have two people, just two different people.
Yeah, well, that's two different
They could be
points of
friends,
view.
and one will
But
act on it and discriminate.
everybody is impacted by prejudice one way or the other.
That's
you
it.
see, and
Yes.
so either you are or you know some of your friends
That's
are,
right.
and you have to deal with that. Very good.
All set.
Well, I think Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is Acts of Prejudice, Prescription for Racism, and the guest is Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. And Dr. Sanford, during this second segment, let's give you an opportunity to lay out for our audience this morning some of the things that you consider to be acts of prejudice, and that will give us an opportunity to further lead this segment and then go into the next segment and develop some of the things that you're going to talk about during this segment.
Okay. Yes, again, and a prejudice is a negative attitude that a person or group of people might have toward another, a dislike. And as we stated in the last segment, to kind of follow up just briefly, is that they might have this dislike and not really link that to the way they may think or feel or be unaware of it. Dr. Gordon Allport, in his classic book entitled The Nature of Prejudice, he has 5 different levels of acts of prejudice. The first one he calls, it's a funny word, he calls antilocution. And antilocution is just a word that he means that a group of people may gather and they might hear someone and they might say, well, yes, I really believe in what that person is saying. And they might listen to it, they might come back to the second and third meeting about it, but they are not at that particular point willing to go out and to do anything other than just listen to it and agree to it. Now, the second level of an act on prejudice is that of avoidance. Dr. Gordon Allport said that a segment of that first group might go out and say, I want to avoid because I have a dislike toward another group, and maybe to live someplace, maybe because I have financial assistance, I can live and not integrate with other people, and I can desegregate myself. I can segregate myself from other people. That's avoidance, when you can just want to stay away from that other group. You have that dislike and that negative attitude. Don't want to have anything to do with it. Then the third level of it is that of discrimination. Now, I want you to see that second, you don't want to have anything to do with them, but you might not do anything negative against them. But that third level is a subgroup of people that might not want to have anything to do with the person, but they will actually discriminate against an individual.
Find themselves in a situation where they have to deal with that group.
Yes,
is that what we are?
That's right. Or if they have to hire, or if they are working in a particular place, they might see that a particular person is checked that they are of a particular ethnic group, and then they might do something that is discriminatory toward that group. So that's an act on prejudice, because you, in your mind, have this attitude about a person that you might not even know, but this dislike, and you might act on it in a very discriminatory way. We can look at history and our laws that at one time said that people that of a certain ethnic group would have to live in a certain area, they couldn't go to certain schools, and so an entire civil rights movement had to take place for those changes to come about. Even those that are listening might think, well, institutions just always wanted to be fair in having athletics, but a movement had to go to have a certain title to be changed for women to have the right to play sports, because they were discriminated against. So then he looks at the next level of acts on prejudice, is that of physical attack.
Okay.
That's when they have this negative attitude toward this other group, that they're not only wanting to avoid and to discriminate, but they're going to organize themselves to actually go out and to then physically attack another group. We might remember the dark history in America where the Ku Klux Klans may have gone out and burned houses down, crosses, very intimidating. And that was a physical attack. And then the fifth level is called extermination. That's an act of prejudice where you're so racist toward another group of people, you target them and try to really do away with the entire group. That's extermination.
Physical extermination.
Physical extermination. Yes, you were just clearly trying to do it, and we can see that's the reason of World War II, because of what happened in Nazi Germany. Those types of things occurred. So we have those types of examples of acts of prejudice that is within our society today. Now, what I wanted to try to share that for is simply this. Presently, we have a reoccurring pattern that exists within our society of different groups of people that might be a part of antilocution, and they might work well with others, but when they go out into the workforce and they meet someone that might be a particular suspect, something in the subconscious might move them from the antilocution to the whole idea of a physical attack. And then they might unwantingly shoot that person or kill that person. And they would see some things that really didn't happen to try to justify it. But this is the same type of incident when people get together and say, well, we're going to really go to a place in an organized way and do something to some people. So now we're in a society where some people are feeling victimized by this peculiarity of acts on prejudice that might be at the level of antilocution, where they might do a little bit of the avoidance within the workplace and stay away. And then people there might leave with a certain feeling, and that person that avoided might not think they did anything toward that other person at all. And then they might even have a little discrimination that might be going on in the workplace, and everybody might meet and have a donut or coffee, but that person might get this feeling that they are not accepted. And now they will then have some of these acts of prejudice where they might move to then do some physical attacks because what they have personally felt is going on in their life, that they went to school, they tried to assimilate, they learned the language of the dominant group, they're dressing like the dominant group, and they're still not being treated fairly. And then they might go out and then be in a postmodernist age, have some thoughts about something they see in cyberspace, Facebook or whatever, that might make them make a decision to go out and do a physical attack about some other attack that was done against them. So it becomes this kind of an integration of something that is going on that's an act on prejudice that moved into a physical attack by another person that might not think they did it, but they actually did it to that individual.
And so in a real sense, Doctor, we're saying that sociologically,
yes,
that a person can not have a prejudiced bone in his body, but his relationship with other folks, the kind of conversations that he becomes involved in, can move him from that first act up to the last act simply by the environment and the things that he hears that are said in reference to that group or that individual. Is that what we're saying?
That's what we are saying, and we are not saying 100% of that group. We are saying that in that antilocution, going back to if we can just observe what's going on before us in a national level at political campaigns, how you might have an entire group that might get at the same group that would have done physical attacks. Number 4, Ku Klux Klan, David Duke. Others that will show up because they are feeling depressed within the economic system that they are in, and they are all at the same place. Some will lash out while some will not.
Okay, very good. And what we're going to do, we're going to take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. A situation where he might run across that first stage, and by simply being in that group, he can move from one stage to another, from not knowing anything about him to now you want to kill him.
Yes.
Is that I said that's a real progression.
And this is what I'm seeing with Donald Trump and his group. See, I don't think anything is wrong with Donald Trump. I think he knows that that group is out there, and then when he says that, his polls keep going up and up. So he started using that language over and over again.
Make
that's
that as a
what
point. That's a point. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. The topic is Acts of Prejudice, Prescription for Racism. And we have with us to talk about acts of prejudice and the prescription for racism, Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. And so, Dr. Sanford, let's see if we can finish this last segment by having you make some comments in reference to an individual who might be caught within that first act that you're talking about, and as he or she moves up